Have you ever felt the suffocating weight of loss? It's a feeling that clings to you, suffocating you in its grip. A few years ago, I experienced this kind of loss when my girlfriend Jessica decided to leave me. The reason? I wasn't rich enough for her. The heartbreak was acute, like a knife tearing through my chest, leaving an emptiness that felt impossible to fill. Initially, I was consumed by despair, wandering through life as a mere shadow of my former self. I had believed that our love was genuine, that our dreams were intertwined. But the moment she chose financial security over the bond we shared, my entire world shattered. I found myself grappling with self-doubt, questioning my worth and my place in this world. In my mind, Jessica had represented everything I aspired to be: successful, confident, and fiercely independent. I thought we were a team, partners destined to conquer life together. But the stark reality of her departure forced me to confront an unsettling truth. I was left alone, left to sift through the wreckage of my emotions. My self-esteem plummeted as I was confronted by the harsh whispers of doubt. I began to question my identity, my value, and whether I would ever find love again. The fear of never being enough loomed like a dark cloud, casting shadows over my heart. But amid the chaos, I felt a flicker of resolve stirring within me. I refused to let this heartbreak define my existence. Deep down, I knew that I had the power to rebuild my life, to rise from the ashes like a phoenix. So I embarked on a journey of self-discovery, one that would ultimately lead me to the love I never thought I'd find again. Little did I know that this journey would not only transform my heart, but also ignite a fire within me to pursue my dreams with unrelenting passion. With every passing day, I felt the heaviness of my loss begin to lift, albeit slowly. I sought solace in the little things that had once brought me joy. Time spent with friends, quiet evenings with a good book, and the beauty of nature. Slowly but surely, I began to reclaim my identity, piece by piece. I realized that my worth was not determined by my financial status, nor was it contingent upon someone else's approval. This newfound perspective fueled my determination to not only heal, but also thrive. As I worked on rebuilding my confidence, I set my sights on personal development. I enrolled in workshops and courses that focused on self-improvement, immersing myself in the wisdom of those who had faced similar challenges. I found inspiration in their stories, learning that I was not alone in my struggles. Each lesson became a stepping stone toward reclaiming my life, helping me to see that love is multifaceted, self-love being the most important of all. Before I knew it, I was emerging from the shadows, ready to embrace the world once again. The journey was not without its difficulties, but I was resolute in my desire to forge a new path, one that would lead me to a brighter future, far removed from the pain of my past. Little did I know that this journey would take an unexpected turn, leading me to love again in the most surprising way. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was ready to face it head-on, determined to find happiness, success, and love on my terms. A few months after Jessica left, I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop, lost in thought. It had become my sanctuary, a place where I could escape the weight of my reality. I watched as couples chatted and laughed, their smiles a stark reminder of what I had lost. Just as I was about to leave, a mutual friend, Mark, walked in. I hadn't seen him in a while, but we used to share a lot of laughs during the time I was with Jessica. He waved and joined me at my table, clearly eager to catch up. "Hey man, it's been too long," Mark said, his eyes bright with enthusiasm. I forced a smile, appreciating his effort but not quite able to match his energy. We exchanged pleasantries and recounted stories from the past, but deep down, I was still grappling with the void Jessica had left behind. Mark eventually brought up Jessica, and the moment his name slipped from his lips, my heart sank. "I've seen Jessica a few times recently," he said, casually stirring his coffee. My stomach churned at the mention of her name. "Yeah? How is she?" I asked, trying to maintain a casual demeanor, even though my insides were twisting in knots. Mark hesitated, his expression shifting from lighthearted to serious. "Well, I don't want to gossip, but I heard she's been seeing someone new." His words hung in the air like a thick fog, and I felt a rush of emotions flood through me: betrayal, anger, and sadness. Part of me knew that she had moved on, but hearing it from a friend brought the harsh reality crashing down. "Do you know who it is?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark looked uncomfortable, as if he had just dropped a bombshell. "I'm not sure if I should tell you, man. It's pretty fresh, and I don't want to hurt you." But at that moment, I needed the truth, no matter how painful it was. "Just tell me, Mark," I insisted, my heart racing. "I need to know." After a long pause, he finally replied, "It's David, her old colleague from work. I saw them together at that new restaurant downtown." My heart plummeted as the name registered in my mind. David had always been someone I considered a friend, and the thought of him with Jessica cut deeper than I could have imagined. The news hit me like a freight train, sending me spiraling back into a whirlwind of emotions. Memories of our time together flooded my mind, and I couldn't help but replay moments when Jessica had reassured me of her love and commitment. The weight of betrayal settled heavily on my chest, and I felt the breath leave my lungs. I struggled to accept this new reality, grappling with the notion that the woman I had loved had moved on so easily. It felt as if my entire world had been turned upside down, and I couldn't shake the feeling of inadequacy that washed over me. Why wasn't I enough for her? This question echoed in my mind, gnawing at my self-esteem and self-worth. Mark tried to comfort me, saying, "You're better off without her, man. You deserve someone who sees your worth." But his words did little to soothe the storm raging within me. The reality of the situation was too much to bear. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming mix of grief and anger. Grief for the love I thought we had, and anger at both Jessica and David for their betrayal. As Mark and I parted ways, I felt a sense of urgency to confront Jessica. I needed to hear it from her own lips, to understand how she could move on so swiftly. The emotional turmoil swirling inside me was suffocating, and I could no longer avoid the truth. It was time to confront my past, to face the heartache head-on. This confrontation would either lead to closure or deepen the wounds, but I knew I had to do it. I could no longer let the pain linger in the shadows. It was time to shine a light on the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The days following my conversation with Mark were a blur. I was caught in a storm of emotions, battling between anger, sadness, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. I had spent countless nights lying awake, reliving memories of Jessica, and replaying the moments we shared. It was as if my mind had become a prison, trapping me in a cycle of what-ifs and self-doubt. Finally, I gathered enough courage to confront Jessica. I called her and suggested we meet at our usual spot, a quaint little park where we had shared so many happy moments. My heart raced with each passing hour as I prepared myself for what was to come. I needed answers, clarity, and perhaps a semblance of closure. But deep down, I dreaded the possibility that our love had been a lie. When the day arrived, I stood by the park bench, anxiously tapping my foot on the ground. The familiar sights of the park brought back a flood of memories, but today they felt tainted by the reality of our situation. Finally, I saw Jessica walking towards me, her expression unreadable. As she approached, I noticed how the sunlight caught her hair, and for a moment, I was transported back to the time when everything felt right. But that feeling quickly faded, replaced by a gut-wrenching sense of dread. "Hey, Michael," she greeted me, her voice soft but distant. I could tell she was trying to keep things cordial, but the air was thick with tension. "Thanks for meeting me," I nodded, my throat tight. "I wanted to talk about what Mark said," I started, my voice shaky. "I need to know if it's true. Are you seeing David?" Her reaction was immediate, a flicker of surprise crossing her face before she composed herself. "I didn't think he'd say anything," she replied, her tone evasive. "But yes, we've been spending time together." Each word felt like a dagger to my heart, and I struggled to maintain my composure. "How could you?" I asked, my voice breaking. "After everything we had, how could you just move on like that?" Jessica looked away, her gaze fixed on the ground. "It's complicated, Michael. I wasn't happy in our relationship anymore. I thought you would understand." Her words felt like a betrayal, cutting deeper than I could have anticipated. The truth was that I had never seen the signs. I had always believed that our love was strong enough to weather any storm, but here we were, standing on opposite sides of a chasm, each of us clinging to our own version of the truth. "Complicated," I repeated, struggling to contain my anger. "You just decided to find someone else instead of working through it with me?" I felt my heart racing as emotions boiled over. "You didn't even give me a chance. We could have talked about it, tried to fix things." Jessica looked pained, but I could see the resolve in her eyes. "I was tired of waiting for you to get your life together. I wanted stability, Michael, and I didn't see that happening with you." The sting of her words hit me like a cold slap across the face. The very idea that she had been contemplating our relationship's end while I had been working on myself felt like salt in an open wound. "So you chose him instead?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Because he has a better job. Because he can provide the life you think you deserve." The bitterness seeped into my words, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of loss. Loss not just of love, but of the future I had envisioned. "It's not just about money, Michael," she replied, her tone becoming defensive. "It's about feeling secure, about having someone who can support me emotionally and financially." The conversation felt like a battlefield, with both of us fighting for our own versions of reality. I felt trapped in a world where love was no longer enough. "I guess this is goodbye then," I said, my heart heavy with resignation. It was difficult to accept that the woman I once adored had chosen someone else over the love we had built together. As I walked away, I felt a mix of anger and sadness, grappling with the realization that our love story was over. In that moment, I knew I needed to channel my pain into something positive. I would no longer be the man defined by his heartbreak. This was my turning point, a chance to reclaim my narrative and redefine what love meant to me. I had to focus on myself, my growth, and my journey toward healing. In the aftermath of my confrontation with Jessica, I found myself adrift in a sea of emotions. The waves of heartache crashed over me, and I felt like I was drowning in a deep ocean of self-doubt. The bitter truth of her betrayal gnawed at my self-esteem, leaving me questioning my worth and my place in this world. How had I allowed someone to dictate my value based on my financial status. As days turned into weeks, I realized that I needed to confront the demons within me. The scars of rejection were deep, and I couldn't ignore the impact they were having on my mental health. The constant replay of Jessica's words echoed in my mind. I wanted stability. I didn't see that happening with you. Each repetition felt like a punch to the gut, reminding me of my perceived failures. I was determined to break free from this cycle, to reclaim my sense of self. To begin my journey of healing, I sought solace in self-reflection. I spent countless hours journaling, pouring my heart out onto the pages. I wrote about my feelings, my fears, and the dreams I had once shared with Jessica. It was cathartic, allowing me to externalize the pain that had been festering inside. As I wrote, I started to recognize patterns in my thoughts and emotions, realizing that I had been placing my worth in someone else's hands. Slowly, I began to implement changes in my daily life. I started exercising regularly, channeling my frustration into physical activity. I discovered that the endorphins released during a workout not only boosted my mood, but also helped me regain a sense of control over my life. I signed up for a local gym, where I immersed myself in fitness classes, meeting new people, and forming connections. Each drop of sweat felt like a release of the pain I had been carrying, and with every session, I felt myself becoming stronger, both physically and emotionally. In addition to physical activity, I immersed myself in personal development. I devoured books on self-esteem, confidence, and resilience. I attended workshops focused on self-improvement, where I met individuals who had faced their own struggles. Hearing their stories resonated deeply with me, and I began to understand that I wasn't alone in my feelings of inadequacy. We all had our battles to fight, and the journey to self-love was a universal struggle. As I worked through my feelings, I discovered the importance of surrounding myself with positivity. I reached out to friends who uplifted me, who reminded me of my worth when I struggled to see it myself. Their support became my anchor during the storm of emotions I was navigating. I began to engage in activities that brought me joy: painting, hiking, and cooking. Each new experience opened my eyes to the beauty of life beyond my heartbreak. As my self-esteem began to rebuild, I started to view myself through a different lens. I recognized that I was not defined by my relationship with Jessica or by my financial status. I was a unique individual with dreams, passions, and strengths. This revelation sparked a fire within me, a desire to pursue my own goals without the shadow of my past hanging over me. With newfound confidence, I began setting ambitious goals for myself, both personally and professionally. I re-evaluated my career path and sought opportunities for growth and advancement. I began taking on projects at work that challenged me, pushing me to step outside my comfort zone. This shift in focus not only reignited my passion for my job, but also helped me regain a sense of purpose and direction. Through it all, I learned that healing is not a linear journey. There were days when the wounds felt fresh, when I would stumble back into the depths of despair. But I recognized those moments as part of my process, allowing myself to grieve while also reminding myself of the progress I had made. I was a work in progress, and each step I took toward healing was a victory in itself. As the months rolled on, I began to understand that self-esteem is not just about external validation. It's about cultivating a relationship with oneself that is built on love, respect, and acceptance. I was learning to embrace my flaws, to celebrate my strengths, and to honor my journey. This shift in perspective became my guiding light as I navigated the path toward healing, ultimately preparing me for the love that was yet to come. The days turned into weeks, and as I worked on rebuilding my self-esteem and reclaiming my identity, the thought of confronting Jessica continued to haunt me. I had gathered all the strength I could muster, but the weight of what I needed to say felt almost unbearable. Still, I knew I had to confront her if I wanted any semblance of closure or understanding. One sunny afternoon, I decided it was finally time. I had spent countless nights rehearsing what I would say, but the moment had come, and I was determined to face her. I called Jessica and suggested we meet at the park where we had shared so many memories, a place that was now tinged with bittersweet nostalgia. As I arrived, my heart raced, a mix of anxiety and resolve coursing through me. I arrived early and sat on the same bench where we had laughed, shared dreams, and crafted our future. But now, it felt different. It felt like a battlefield where I would confront the ghosts of our relationship. When Jessica arrived, she looked just as beautiful as ever, but the weight of our situation hung heavy in the air. "Hey, Michael," she greeted me, her tone tentative. I nodded, steeling myself for what was to come. "Thanks for meeting me." I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words amidst the turmoil of emotions swirling inside me. "I think we need to talk about David," I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "I've had some time to think, and I need to understand what happened between us." Jessica shifted uncomfortably, her gaze falling to the ground. I could see the mix of regret and defiance in her eyes, and it fueled my determination to uncover the truth. "Did you ever love me?" I asked, my voice breaking slightly. The question felt heavy, like a stone thrown into a still pond, creating ripples of uncertainty. Jessica hesitated, clearly caught off guard by the rawness of my inquiry. "Of course I did," she replied, her voice softening. "But things changed. I felt like I was always waiting for you to catch up." The words stung like 1,000 bees, each one a reminder of how I had fallen short of her expectations. "But you didn't even try to talk to me about it," I exclaimed, frustration rising in my chest. "You made your decision without giving me a chance." Her silence spoke volumes, and I could see the guilt etched across her face. "I thought it was for the best," she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I felt trapped in our relationship, and when David showed me attention and support, I couldn't help but be drawn to him." "So, it was about money and security then?" I asked, my heart heavy with disappointment. "You chose him because he could give you a life you thought you deserved." Jessica looked away, unable to meet my gaze. "It wasn't just that," she said, her voice faltering. "I was unhappy, and I thought I was being practical." The realization that our love had been discarded in favor of practicality shattered what remained of my heart. I had believed in the fairy tale. I had believed that love was enough to conquer all obstacles. But what about us? What about the dreams we shared? I pressed, desperate for some glimmer of understanding. "Did any of it mean anything to you?" "It did, Michael, but I felt like I was always the one holding everything together. I wanted to feel secure, and I didn't see that happening with you. I thought you would eventually get there, but I couldn't wait any longer." Her words hung in the air, a reminder that love is often not enough to sustain a relationship if both partners are not aligned in their goals and desires. I realized that no matter how much I had loved her, we were on different paths. "So you chose to betray me instead?" I asked, my voice trembling. "You took the easy way out." Jessica looked down, shame washing over her. "I know it was wrong," she admitted, tears brimming in her eyes. but I was scared and confused. I didn't want to hurt you, but I was hurting myself by staying. I took a deep breath, the reality of our conversation settling in. I can't be the person you need me to be, I said, my voice steady. And I can't keep waiting for you to change your mind. I deserve someone who will fight for me, not someone who will run away at the first sign of trouble. As I walked away from that conversation, a sense of finality washed over me. It was painful to accept that our love story had reached its conclusion, but I knew I had to focus on my healing and growth. In that moment, I realized that confronting my past was not just about seeking closure, but also about embracing my future. I was ready to let go and move forward, stronger than ever. After my confrontation with Jessica, I found myself in the throes of emotional turmoil. The heartbreak felt like a heavy shroud enveloping me, suffocating my spirit and casting a shadow over every aspect of my life. I had believed our love was invincible, that nothing could sever the bond we had created. But now, the reality of her betrayal weighed heavily on my chest, like an anchor dragging me down into an abyss of despair. The first few days after our conversation were the hardest. I felt as though I was trapped in a fog of sadness, moving through life as if in slow motion. I could barely concentrate at work, my mind constantly replaying the moments we had shared, the laughter, the plans, and the dreams. Every corner of my life seemed to remind me of her, of the love that had once flourished and now lay in ruins. At night, I would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, haunted by the silence of our home. The emptiness echoed in my heart, and I felt utterly alone. It was as if a piece of me had been ripped away, leaving a gaping hole that I couldn't fill. I missed the comfort of her presence, the warmth of her smile, and the way she had once made me feel cherished and valued. But alongside that longing was a fierce anger, a betrayal that ignited a fire within me, fueling my determination to rise from the ashes. During this turbulent time, I found solace in my friends. They rallied around me, offering support and companionship that I desperately needed. One evening, my best friend Mark invited me out for drinks. As we sat in the dimly lit bar, he listened patiently as I poured out my heart, recounting the painful details of my confrontation with Jessica. "You deserve better than this, man," he said, his voice steady and reassuring. "Don't let her actions define your worth." His words struck a chord within me, serving as a reminder that I was not alone in my pain. Mark had been through his own share of heartbreak, and his perspective offered a glimmer of hope in my darkest moments. As the weeks passed, I began to channel my heartbreak into creativity. I started writing poetry, using words as a way to express my feelings and release the pent-up emotions that had been festering inside. Each verse became a cathartic outlet, allowing me to explore the depths of my heartbreak while also celebrating the resilience of the human spirit. One night, as I sat at my desk, pouring my soul onto the page, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. I realized that I had the power to shape my narrative, to take control of my healing journey. I didn't have to be a victim of my circumstances. I could rise from the ashes of my heartbreak stronger than ever. However, the path to healing was not without its challenges. I would have moments of weakness when memories of Jessica would flood my mind, catching me off guard and pulling me back into the depths of despair. I found myself haunted by questions that lingered in the air like a dark cloud. Why wasn't I enough? What had I done wrong? But each time I fell, I learned to pick myself back up, to dust off the pain and push forward. I started practicing mindfulness and meditation, using these tools to ground myself in the present moment. I learned to acknowledge my feelings without judgment, allowing myself to grieve the loss of our relationship while also celebrating the journey of self-discovery I was on. As I navigated through this emotional storm, I also began to focus on my personal growth. I set goals for myself, both big and small, and started pursuing interests that had been put on hold during my relationship. I enrolled in a photography class, something I had always wanted to do but never found the time for. The creative outlet provided a much-needed escape, allowing me to express myself in new and exciting ways. With each passing day, I felt the fog of sadness begin to lift. I learned to find joy in the little things: sunrises, laughter with friends, and the beauty of nature surrounding me. Slowly but surely, I was reclaiming my life, piece by piece. The emotional turmoil was still present, but it had transformed into a catalyst for growth. I was learning to embrace vulnerability, understanding that it was okay to feel pain and sadness. I started to see my heartbreak as a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block, a necessary part of my journey toward healing and self-discovery. Through the highs and lows of my emotional journey, I realized that heartbreak, while painful, was also a powerful teacher. It pushed me to confront my fears, to reassess my values, and to rediscover the strength that lay within me. And as I began to heal, I felt the stirrings of hope, a belief that love was still possible, that my story was far from over. As the weeks of emotional turmoil passed, I found myself more determined than ever to confront the reality of my situation. While the initial shock of Jessica's betrayal had left me reeling, I slowly began to understand that I could no longer allow myself to be held hostage by our past. I had endured enough pain, and it was time to prioritize my own well-being and happiness. One evening, as I was deep in thought, I received a text from Jessica asking to meet again. It had been a few weeks since our last conversation, and I had been working diligently to heal and move forward. But part of me wondered if she had something to say that could change my mind. With a mix of apprehension and curiosity, I agreed to meet her. We chose a quiet cafe, a place we had frequented during happier times. As I walked in, a wave of nostalgia washed over me, but I quickly pushed it aside, focusing instead on the conversation ahead. Jessica looked anxious as she entered, her eyes scanning the room until they locked onto mine. I gestured for her to sit, and she slid into the chair opposite me, her expression a mix of regret and determination. "Michael," she began, her voice trembling slightly, "I've had some time to think. I know I hurt you, and I can't take back what I did, but I want you to know that I've been feeling lost without you." My heart raced at her words. Did she really believe she could waltz back into my life and expect everything to be fine? I took a deep breath, preparing myself for what I hoped would be a meaningful conversation. "Jessica, I appreciate your honesty," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "But what you did was more than just hurtful. You shattered my trust." She looked down, her hands fidgeting on the table. "I know, and I've been thinking about how I can make it right. I still love you, and I want to work on our relationship." At that moment, I felt a surge of anger mixed with sadness. Did she truly believe that love alone could fix the broken pieces of our relationship? "You can't just say you love me after everything that happened," I said, my voice rising. "Love isn't enough when you've been unfaithful. It's about trust, respect, and commitment." Her eyes filled with tears, and I could see the turmoil behind her facade. "I made a mistake, Michael. I know that now. I was scared and confused. but I want to make things right. I can change. Change? You expect me to believe that? I shot back, frustration boiling over. You broke our vows. You chose to be with someone else when things got tough. You can't just flip a switch and expect me to forget. The conversation quickly escalated into a quarrel, both of us raising our voices, the tension palpable. It was as if we were trapped in a cycle of blame and regret, neither willing to back down. I could feel the anguish of our history wrapping around us like a vice, squeezing out any chance of reconciliation. "You think I wanted this?" Jessica exclaimed, her voice cracking. "You think I wanted to hurt you? I was unhappy, and I made a terrible choice." "And that's supposed to excuse your behavior," I retorted, my heart aching as I fought to keep my composure. "You chose to betray me instead of talking about your feelings. That's not something I can forgive." As the argument raged on, I began to feel a shift within myself. Each harsh word exchanged felt like a final nail in the coffin of our relationship. I was done fighting for something that was no longer there. The love I once felt for Jessica was becoming overshadowed by the realization that I deserved so much more than what she had to offer. "You need to understand something, Jessica," I said, my voice steadying. "I'm no longer the person you knew. I'm learning to love myself and to find happiness outside of our relationship. I can't keep living in the past, holding on to something that no longer exists." Her expression shifted from anger to disbelief, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of understanding in her eyes. "So, what are you saying?" she asked softly. "You're just going to walk away?" "Yes," I replied, the weight of my decision settling over me. "I'm leaving you. I can't keep subjecting myself to this pain. I deserve better, and so do you. It's time for both of us to move on." As I stood to leave, a rush of emotions flooded over me. Sadness, relief, anger, but above all, a sense of liberation. I was finally breaking free from the chains that had held me captive for far too long. The moment I stepped out of the cafe, I felt lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Leaving Jessica was not an easy decision, but it was one I had to make for my own healing. I knew that I would face challenges ahead, but for the first time in a long while, I felt hopeful about my future. I was determined to reclaim my life and discover what true happiness meant without her. In the aftermath of my confrontation with Jessica, I realized that my journey to healing would require more than just leaving her behind. I had to dive deep into self-reflection and embrace personal growth to emerge stronger from the ashes of our relationship. With each passing day, I committed myself to working on the person I wanted to become, someone who was not only resilient, but also fulfilled and empowered. To kickstart this process, I enrolled in a self-development workshop that focused on building self-esteem and emotional intelligence. The idea of surrounding myself with others who were also seeking personal growth excited me, and I felt a glimmer of hope that I might find community and support along the way. During the first session, I was greeted by a diverse group of individuals, each with their own stories of heartbreak and triumph. As I listened to their experiences, I realized I was not alone in my struggles. We shared our stories, offering insights and encouragement to one another. I felt an overwhelming sense of connection with these people, united by our desire to heal and grow. It was comforting to know that everyone in that room had faced challenges, yet we were all willing to take the steps necessary to move forward. Throughout the workshop, I learned valuable tools to improve my mindset and foster personal growth. One exercise involved setting clear goals for ourselves, both short-term and long-term. I found this practice incredibly empowering, as it encouraged me to envision the future I wanted to create. I began by identifying areas of my life that needed improvement: my physical health, emotional well-being, and career aspirations. To tackle my physical health, I decided to commit to a fitness routine. I joined a local gym and hired a personal trainer who helped me develop a workout plan tailored to my needs. Initially, it was daunting to step into the gym, surrounded by fit individuals who seemed to radiate confidence. But as I pushed through my insecurities, I began to appreciate the small victories, lifting heavier weights, completing more reps, and ultimately feeling stronger in my own skin. Alongside my physical transformation, I also began focusing on my emotional well-being. I incorporated mindfulness practices into my daily routine, which helped me to cultivate a sense of inner peace amidst the chaos of my emotions. Meditation became a sanctuary for me, allowing me to quiet my mind and connect with my inner self. Through these practices, I learned to embrace my feelings rather than suppress them, acknowledging the pain while also celebrating the progress I was making. As I continued to grow, I realized that self-development was not a linear journey. There were days when I felt triumphant, and other days when the weight of my past felt too heavy to bear. I had to remind myself that setbacks were a natural part of growth, and each stumble was an opportunity to learn. One day, during a particularly challenging moment, I found myself reminiscing about Jessica. Doubts crept in, whispering insidiously in my ear. Was I making the right choice? Could I have done something differently to save our relationship? In that moment of vulnerability, I picked up my journal and began to write. I poured out my thoughts, dissecting my emotions with brutal honesty. As I wrote, I was reminded of the reasons I had chosen to leave. I envisioned the pain of betrayal and the suffocating feeling of being undervalued. In doing so, I reaffirmed my decision and rekindled my sense of self-worth. I was not defined by my past or my relationship with Jessica. I was reclaiming my narrative, and each word I wrote solidified my commitment to healing and self-discovery. During the workshop, we also participated in group discussions about healthy relationships. I realized that I needed to redefine what love meant to me. Instead of viewing it as a dependency or a source of validation, I wanted to cultivate a relationship built on mutual respect, trust, and admiration. This newfound understanding empowered me to visualize the kind of partner I wanted to attract into my life, someone who would cherish and support me just as I would for them. In addition to my physical and emotional work, I sought to enhance my professional life as well. I had been feeling stagnant in my career, and I knew that it was time to take charge. I began seeking opportunities for advancement at work, enrolling in online courses to gain new skills, and networking with colleagues who inspired me. Slowly, I began to see the fruits of my labor. As I committed myself to self-development, my confidence grew, and my perspective on life began to shift. I was no longer the man defined by heartbreak, but rather someone who had faced adversity and emerged more resilient. Through this transformative journey, I discovered that self-love was the foundation for building a fulfilling life. I learned to prioritize my happiness and well-being, understanding that I was worthy of love and respect. Each day, I woke up with renewed determination, ready to embrace the world and all the possibilities it had to offer. As I continued on this path of self-discovery, I felt a deep sense of empowerment. The once insurmountable pain of losing Jessica had transformed into fuel for my growth. I was ready to to step into my power, to build the life I had always dreamed of, a life filled with purpose, passion, and the promise of love. As I continued my journey of self-development, I began to realize that healing was not just a destination, but an ongoing process. Each day brought new challenges and opportunities for growth, and I learned to embrace them as essential steps on my path to recovery. One of the most crucial aspects of this healing journey was cultivating a support system that nurtured my newfound self-worth and encouraged me to thrive. I reached out to friends and family members who had always been there for me, those who listened without judgment and offered genuine support. I shared my experiences and emotions with them, creating an open dialogue that fostered trust and understanding. Their encouragement reminded me that I was not alone in this journey and that there were people who cared deeply about my well-being. In addition to my personal support network, I also sought professional guidance. I began attending therapy sessions to explore the deeper emotions surrounding my past relationship. Working with a therapist provided me with the tools to process my feelings and gain insights into patterns of behavior that had previously gone unexamined. Together, we delved into the roots of my insecurities and fears, uncovering how they had influenced my decisions and relationships. During these sessions, I discovered that my fear of abandonment had been a significant factor in my reluctance to leave Jessica, even after her betrayal. The thought of being alone was daunting, and I had clung to the hope that she would change, that our love could somehow be rekindled. However, through therapy, I learned that I needed to confront this fear head-on. I began to understand that I had the power to create my own happiness, independent of others' actions or choices. As I worked through my emotions, I found strength in vulnerability. I started journaling not just about my pain, but also about my hopes and aspirations. Writing became a therapeutic outlet, allowing me to express my thoughts freely and without restraint. I filled pages with dreams of the future, traveling to new places, pursuing hobbies I had long neglected, and cultivating a life filled with love and joy. Gradually, I began to notice a shift within myself. The heavy cloud of heartbreak that had once consumed me began to lift, revealing glimpses of light and hope. I found solace in the small victories. Each morning, I woke up feeling more centered and at peace with my choices. I embraced new experiences, trying activities I had always wanted to pursue, such as painting and hiking. As I ventured into these new territories, I discovered passions I had long forgotten. Painting became a means of self-expression, allowing me to channel my emotions onto the canvas. Each brushstroke felt liberating, as I created vibrant images that reflected my journey of healing. Nature, too, became a source of inspiration, with hiking trails offering both solitude and a chance to reconnect with my surroundings. One day, during a hike, I encountered a breathtaking view overlooking the valley. Standing there, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey I had undertaken. I had weathered the storm, and while scars remained, they were a testament to my strength and resilience. It was during this period of introspection that I began to understand the true essence of love. I realized that love should never be conditional or transactional. It should flourish in an environment of mutual respect and growth. I yearned for a partnership built on authenticity, where both individuals could thrive together, supporting each other's dreams and aspirations. As my healing progressed, I started to feel a shift in my mindset. I was no longer defined by the pain of my past, but empowered by the lessons I had learned. I began to let go of the negative self-talk that had plagued me for so long, replacing it with affirmations of self-love and acceptance. With each passing day, I grew more confident in my worth. I felt a renewed sense of purpose as I engaged with the world around me, ready to embrace whatever life had in store. It was during this period of newfound strength that I opened myself to the possibility of love once again. I began to explore the idea of dating, cautiously dipping my toes into the waters of romance. While I approached it with a sense of curiosity rather than desperation, I knew I was ready to connect with someone who shared my values and vision for the future. As I ventured into this new chapter of my life, I found comfort in the notion that I was not seeking someone to complete me. I was looking for a partner to share in my journey. With this mindset, I entered the dating world with a sense of excitement and openness, ready to embrace the connections that awaited me. I was determined to find someone who would appreciate me for who I was, a man who had faced adversity, learned valuable lessons, and emerged stronger on the other side. I wanted a love that was authentic and genuine, one that would foster growth and joy rather than insecurity and doubt. As I began to put myself out there, I felt an exhilarating rush of hope. I was embarking on a journey of rediscovery, and for the first time in a long while, I was excited about the possibilities that lay ahead. With an open heart and an empowered spirit, I was ready to welcome love into my life once again. As I ventured back into the world of dating, I was filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The prospect of meeting someone new both thrilled and terrified me. I knew that the journey would require me to be vulnerable again, to open my heart after the pain I had experienced with Jessica. But this time, I was armed with the lessons I had learned, and I approached each potential connection with a sense of hope and intention. I decided to join a local community group focused on outdoor activities. It felt like the perfect way to meet new people while engaging in an environment that brought me joy. One sunny Saturday, I attended a hiking event organized by the group, eager to explore the nearby trails and connect with like-minded individuals. As I arrived at the meeting point, I felt a wave of anticipation wash over me. Amidst the chatter of excited hikers, I spotted a woman who stood out from the crowd. Her name was Emma. She exuded warmth and enthusiasm, chatting with others as they prepared for the hike. As we introduced ourselves, I felt an instant connection, a spark that ignited the embers of hope within me. We exchanged stories about our favorite outdoor adventures, and I found myself laughing easily with her. Throughout the hike, we engaged in deep conversations, sharing our passions, dreams, and even our past struggles. Emma spoke candidly about her own experiences, revealing how she had navigated heartbreak and emerged stronger on the other side. In her, I saw a reflection of my journey, a woman who had faced adversity and chosen to embrace life with an open heart. As we reached the summit, the breathtaking view before us seemed to symbolize the possibilities that lay ahead. I felt a sense of freedom, as if I was standing on the precipice of a new chapter in my life. It was exhilarating to share this moment with someone who understood the value of resilience and growth. In the days that followed, Emma and I began to spend more time together. We explored the city, attended local events, and engaged in meaningful conversations that deepened our connection. With each shared experience, I felt walls I had built around my heart begin to crumble. However, even amidst the joy of new love, I was mindful of the importance of rebuilding trust. I knew that my past experiences had left scars, and I didn't want to project my insecurities onto Emma. I made a conscious effort to communicate openly about my feelings, sharing my fears and vulnerabilities, while also encouraging her to do the same. We established a foundation of trust, built on transparency and honesty. I cherished the moments we spent together, and I admired Emma's ability to navigate her own emotions with grace. We discussed our values, our dreams, and what we both wanted from a relationship. One evening, as we sat beneath a blanket of stars, I found myself sharing my journey of self-discovery with her. I opened up about my past relationship with Jessica, how it had shaped me, and the lessons I had learned about love and respect. Emma listened attentively, her eyes filled with understanding. To my surprise, she responded with empathy, sharing her own story of heartbreak and the resilience she had developed through her experiences. I felt a deepening connection between us, one that was rooted in vulnerability and authenticity. As the weeks turned into months, my feelings for Emma grew stronger. I realized that I had begun to trust her with my heart, a significant milestone in my healing journey. I no longer felt the weight of my past holding me back. Instead, I was filled with hope and excitement for the future we were building together. Yet I was still aware of the potential for challenges. I knew that relationships required ongoing effort and communication to thrive. I made it a priority to keep our lines of communication open, addressing any concerns or uncertainties that arose. Emma and I both committed to creating a space where we could be honest with one another, fostering a sense of security in our relationship. As we continued to grow together, I found myself rediscovering the joy of love. I was no longer approaching it from a place of desperation or insecurity. Instead, I was fully present, ready to embrace the beauty of the connection we were cultivating. In the midst of this blossoming romance, I found myself reflecting on the importance of self-love. I understood that to fully embrace a new relationship, I needed to continue nurturing my own sense of worth and happiness. With Emma by my side, I felt empowered to pursue my passions and dreams, knowing that our love would only flourish in an environment of mutual support. As I watched our relationship evolve, I couldn't help but feel grateful for the journey I had undertaken. Each heartbreak had brought me closer to the person I was becoming, and meeting Emma felt like the culmination of my efforts to heal and grow. With every passing day, I knew I was building something special, a love that was rooted in understanding, trust, and a shared commitment to growth. I was excited to see where this journey would take us, knowing that we were both ready to embrace the adventure together. As my relationship with Emma blossomed, I found myself settling into a new rhythm of life, one filled with love, laughter, and shared dreams. Just when I thought the past was behind me, however, I received an unexpected message that turned my world upside down. It was from Jessica. The text was simple, yet unsettling. "Can we talk? I've been thinking a lot about us." My heart raced as a flood of emotions washed over me. Memories of my time with Jessica, both the good and the painful, rushed back, and I felt a pang of uncertainty. I hadn't spoken to her since our breakup, and I had worked so hard to heal and move on. As I sat with Emma at our favorite cafe, I couldn't shake the feeling of anxiety. I debated whether to tell her about Jessica's message. I wanted to be honest with Emma, but I also feared that bringing it up would create unnecessary tension between us. After a few moments of contemplation, I decided it was essential to be open. "Emma," I began, trying to find the right words. "I received a message from my ex. She wants to talk." I watched as Emma's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "What does she want?" Emma asked, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "I'm not entirely sure. She didn't go into details, but it feels like she's having second thoughts about our breakup," I replied, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. Emma took a deep breath and nodded, her gaze steady. "You know what you want, and you've worked so hard to heal. Don't let her interfere with what you've built with me." Her words resonated deeply, and I felt a surge of reassurance. I had worked tirelessly to create a life that felt authentic and fulfilling, one that I was proud to share with Emma. The following day, I decided to respond to Jessica's message, letting her know I was willing to meet, but only for closure. I was curious to understand why she wanted to reconnect, but I was resolute in my commitment to Emma. When we met at a nearby park, Jessica appeared nervous, yet hopeful. As we sat on a bench beneath the blooming cherry blossoms, I could see the regret etched on her face. "I've missed you, Derek," she said softly. "I've had time to reflect, and I realize now how much I took you for granted. I thought I wanted someone with more money and status, but I see that was a mistake." Her words felt like a punch to the gut. I listened, absorbing her apology while reminding myself of the hurt she had caused. "Jessica," I replied cautiously, "I've spent months rebuilding my life after our breakup. I appreciate your honesty, but I've moved on. I'm in a relationship with someone who respects and loves me for who I am." The look of disappointment on her face was palpable, and I couldn't help but feel a mix of sympathy and resolve. "I understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just wish I had realized sooner what we had." As she spoke, I felt a surge of clarity. I was grateful for the lessons I had learned through my experiences with Jessica, but I knew I was no longer the man she once knew. I had grown, evolved, and embraced a life filled with love and support. After our conversation, I walked away feeling lighter. I had faced the past and emerged stronger. I recognized that Jessica's attempt to reconnect was rooted in her regrets, but it no longer held power over me. Returning to Emma, I shared the details of our meeting, grateful for her understanding and support. "I'm proud of you for handling that with grace," Emma said, her eyes filled with admiration. "You've come so far, and I admire your strength." In the days that followed, I felt a renewed sense of commitment to my relationship with Emma. Jessica's attempt to come back had only solidified my understanding of what I truly wanted: an authentic partnership rooted in love, respect, and shared values. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself growing closer to Emma, creating cherished memories and dreams for the future. We explored new places, traveled together, and celebrated the joy of our love. I watched as Emma thrived, her light illuminating my life in ways I never thought possible. We supported each other's aspirations, and I marveled at how effortlessly our lives intertwined. Meanwhile, Jessica faded into the background of my life. I recognized her for what she was, a chapter in my story that had ended. While I wished her well, I understood that my heart belonged to Emma, and I was determined to nurture the love we had built together. The experience with Jessica taught me a valuable lesson about self-worth and the importance of surrounding myself with those who genuinely care for me. I had faced my past and emerged victorious, and I was ready to embrace the future with open arms. With Emma by my side, I felt a sense of fulfillment I had never known before. Our love was unbreakable, and I knew that together we could face whatever challenges life presented. As I looked to the future, I felt grateful for every twist and turn that had led me to this moment. I had found love, happiness, and a partner who embraced me for who I was. A journey that had once felt impossible, but was now my beautiful reality. There were moments of doubt, setbacks, and financial uncertainties, but I was determined to persevere. I drew strength from my experiences of overcoming heartache and loss. I reminded myself that success is often born from resilience and tenacity. With Emma's unwavering support, I began to see positive results. My business gained traction, and I started to build a loyal customer base. As my confidence grew, so did my ambition. I expanded my offerings, hired a small team, and began to establish a reputation in the industry. Alongside my professional growth, my relationship with Emma flourished. We celebrated each milestone together, and I felt an immense sense of pride in what we were building. I often reflected on how far I had come, from a place of heartbreak and uncertainty to a life filled with love, success, and shared dreams. Our weekends became a mix of business brainstorming sessions and leisurely outings, exploring new restaurants and hiking trails. Emma encouraged me to maintain a healthy work-life balance, reminding me that success should not come at the cost of our happiness together. As my business continued to grow, I was filled with gratitude for the life I had created. I had learned to embrace the struggles, knowing they were all part of the journey. I understood that success is not merely defined by wealth, but by fulfillment and joy. Eventually, I reached a point where my business became self-sustaining, allowing me to step back and focus on what truly mattered: my relationship with Emma and the life we were building together. One evening, after a long day at work, I came home to find Emma preparing a candlelit dinner to celebrate a significant milestone for my business. As I walked into our cozy home, the warmth of her love enveloped me, and I realized how blessed I was to have her by my side. After dinner, we sat on the porch, watching the stars twinkle above us. I took her hands in mine, feeling a surge of emotion. "Emma," I said, looking into her eyes, "I couldn't have done this without you. You believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." She smiled softly, her eyes reflecting the love we had cultivated together. "You did this for yourself, Derek. You've come so far, and I'm so proud of you. You deserve all the success and happiness in the world." In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. I had not only found love in Emma, but had also discovered the strength to chase my dreams. Our journey together was a testament to the power of resilience, and I was excited for the future that lay ahead. As I looked forward to the adventures yet to come, I knew that my heart belonged to Emma. We had built something beautiful together, a love that was unbreakable and a life that was rich with possibility. And together, we would continue to explore, grow, and create a future filled with love, laughter, and endless adventures.